The Stage Door Show, celebrating the independent artist. With your host, Dave Hondel.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Stage Door Show tonight. This is Dave Hondel. Tonight, I have a great independent singer-songwriter out of the beautiful city of Toronto. Her name is Della Rossa, and she has a new single out it's entitled Worse, that you can find on all streaming platforms. And I also want to talk about her great podcast called Bedroom Studios Podcast. So please welcome to the show, Della Rossa. Thanks for being on the show, Emma.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Absolutely. We are too. And really appreciate you being on. And, I know, first of all, I'm going to get to your song, but I want to start out with this because I listened to your podcast called Bedroom Studios Podcast. And what I like about it is that you have other indie artists on the show with you and you talk about your process, which is great because, everybody has a different process of how they go about making music and writing music and so forth, especially as an indie artist, because, when you're not signed, obviously, to a label, it's, you have to do everything yourself. Everything's DIY. And, especially now with all the platforms out there that you have available to you, you can actually record out of your own home. But, some people go into the studio still, which I think you do sometimes as well. But talk about your podcast and how did you, first of all, what got you started in doing that and how is that going so far for you?
Yeah. So I started the podcast as a way to combine my artist side with my educator side because I'm a music teacher and I'm in teachers college right now. And so I wanted to kind of do something that honored both parts of what I do in real life and also as a way to connect with other independent artists because it's hard even when you go out to see shows and try to engage with people in person, a lot of times those conversations are really short and it's hard to develop those relationships. But then when you sit with someone and talk to them for an hour, you've moved past acquaintances. And so that was the reason why I started the podcast. I find you mentioned talking about the process, which is really like we really go into people's creative and like creative processes and how they build their careers. Because I think also as an educator, I'm very interested in the practical and what are the steps it takes to reach a goal. I find a lot of interviews with like the really like kind of top artists like the Taylor Swifts and the Olivia Rodrigos. They're already established in their career, so those interviews are from a perspective of having already somewhat made it. But I wanted to interview emerging artists to get that perspective of what happens in between, what happens between when you start and when you get really, really big.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously it was a journey and, I think a lot of people, and I know you say you're an educator and, I don't know if you have students that have high aspirations for being, musical artists themselves, but, how do you, kind of, tame that or reel it in a little bit so that people have realistic expectations about being an artist because it's a hard work. Number one, as you know, and it takes a lot of hours and a lot of patience and it's something that just doesn't come overnight. And I think sometimes success that comes overnight comes with a price that people aren't necessarily ready to pay, when it comes to, instant success. So talk about that journey, because I think, as an artist yourself, how do you feel your progression has come along, as a new artist and do you feel you're on the right track at this point?
I find that, it's definitely slower than what I would like, not because it's actually going slow, but because I have big goals and I have a lot of things that I want to achieve and I'm impatient. I want things to happen immediately. I also feel like anything I do is planting a seed for the future. And if I'm consistent with planting those seeds, then eventually you get to see them grow and see them bloom. And so I find now I'm starting to do things that I had started working towards years ago. And it's interesting looking back and being like, I remember I did this thing 2 years ago, and then now I see the result of it, and it's actually happening now.
I don't know if it's happened with you at all. I mean, I've been I used to direct music videos a long time ago, and And, I kind of look back at some of my older work and I'm like, oh my gosh, how did I even put that out? You know what I mean? Because, I thought it was amazing, when I first put it out. And then all of a sudden, like, oh my goodness, as you get better and, as you go on in your career, obviously you make better stuff and, everything that you do is a little bit better and better. Mm-hmm. But do you ever find, looking back at your old stuff, you found that you're actually progressing as an artist because you do look back and like, oh my gosh, I've grown so much and my stuff is so much better now than it was when I first started. Does that ever hit you at all?
Yeah. Sometimes I think back to some of the people that I play shows with. I think like, oh my goodness, like, thank you so much for playing the show with me when I was a really bad singer. Because, like, I look back on the videos, I'm like, oh, like, you need to kind of fail forward in that way.
Yeah, I think sometimes critiquing your own work is the hardest thing to do, but you have to do it. It's almost like an actor not wanting to watch themselves on screen, but you almost have to critique your work in order to get better and do it differently next time. There was I interviewed an actor one time who had a facial twitch every time they did a certain thing with their mouth, but they didn't realize it was happening until they watched themselves back, and then they were able to correct it. But it's something like, as an artist too, as a musical artist, it's pretty much the same thing, where maybe, oh my gosh, I wish I would have put in this verse here, or maybe I wish I would have, put in a break here, or, it's almost like you can, hours and hours you can spend critiquing your work, but then at some point you have to put it to bed and move forward and just let it go. It's got to be hard though to do sometimes, because I think, I think creative people are perfectionists by nature, and it's hard to put things aside, but you almost have to move forward, right?
Yeah, I think it's important to know yourself and have a good understanding of where you're at, and that could be like understanding your strengths and your weaknesses. I kind of, when I put something on, I try to be careful with what I put on the internet, right? So when I put something out, I'm always making sure that it's something I'm comfortable with other people seeing, but also something I'm at least somewhat proud of.
Sure, of course.
And feel good about. And I know that even though in the future, I will look back on that for sure and be like, I could have done better. But at the same time, I'll look back on that and be like, I was proud of it. I was proud of it in the moment, and I'm still proud of it now, because it kind of got me to where I was, and it's just part of my journey. Right? Yeah,
it's a part of everybody's journey. I think that's well said. And what about your students? You're a musical educator, so do your students ever listen to your music, or do they ever, they're fans of yours, or how does that go?
Nah, they're too cool for that.
They're too cool.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of them know that I make music. A lot of them I teach mostly private lessons right now.
Sure.
And they're all pretty young, so I don't think they really have a concept of what that is.
Yeah. So talk about Toronto. I mean, because I know that it's a big music city, and there's a lot of diverse types of genres that out of the that town of, and Toronto is just vast. For anybody who's never been to Toronto, what hit me, I think, when I started making work trips up there, was how massive Toronto is. I mean, it's huge. You could drive an hour and still be in Toronto. It's crazy. So, I guess talk about the music scene in Toronto, and are you particular where you perform? I mean, do you have specific areas that are more your genre of music that you try to perform in?
That's a good question. So I'm actually from Richmond Hill, which is around an hour commute from downtown Toronto. I'm in Toronto a lot for school, and I lived there for a year when I was in my 4th year of undergrad. So I actually didn't start playing shows until maybe halfway through that year when I was living downtown. And I started playing shows because I was following a bunch of other artists, Toronto artists, and I would see where they were playing shows. And then I would go and I would follow the promoters and the booking agents and the venues.
Smart.
That was really helpful. A lot of times I use social media just to kind of keep tabs on what's happening in the area. So that's how I booked my first show. And my goal last year was to just play as much as I could, and to kind of get a feel for the different areas and the different venues. And that was really helpful. But I found that for me as like an acoustic, mostly acoustic singer-songwriter, there was so much diversity with the genres. There's a lot of metal bands and like rock
Yep.
bands,
Exactly. Yeah.
which is really cool and really
Yeah,
exciting,
for
especially
sure.
to see live.
Mm-hmm.
But it was I found it hard to sort of find my niche. And for me, I really enjoy working with female identifying artists. And so I attended a Women in Music conference in last winter, and I met so many amazing female artists there. And I find that's where I started to connect more with artists who were in similar genres as mine.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And we talk about different genres. I mean, one of my favorite groups is Rush. Growing up, and I know that they're a big Canadian group, and they did a lot of stuff around Toronto, and just that's kind of when I first started kind of discovering that Toronto is such a great music city, and and do you ever look, I mean, down the road to your future, performing, and do you ever want to perform outside of Toronto area and maybe go to other provinces, and then also maybe into the US market a little bit?
Oh, for sure. I watch a lot of videos on artist development, and the based on that and those pieces of advice, my goal is to start playing more regionally, so like more GTA and in other cities in Ontario. And I'm hoping that from there I can branch out further to other areas of Canada, maybe the US. I think that'd be really amazing.
Well, I think the good thing about, now, I mean, when I was even doing music videos back about 15 years ago, I mean, social media was there, but it wasn't like it is now. And I mean, streaming platforms were almost non-existent except for like Napster and some of the, very few streaming platforms. So now as an artist, I mean, you typically don't need, representation from like a label anymore. I mean, you can really do, something yourself as long as you can, you can kind of, set yourself apart somehow or market yourself in a way that other people aren't doing it. Because I think a lot of people want instant fame, or they want to put a song out and they just want to rest on that and not, continue to put stuff out or, try to test the market a little bit. And, you just have the world at your fingertips right now. And people who don't utilize that are really, I think they're hurting their career, hurting themselves if they don't, kind of use what's out there. I mean, because a lot of people that came before you didn't have it, and so they needed to be signed by a label to be distributed, and nobody else heard them otherwise. So, I mean, do you feel like you're fortunate in the fact that you have these tools at your fingertips?
I think so. I actually started sharing my music on social media because I was so shy, and I did not feel comfortable showing my songs to people in person. And I was also very nervous to show them online, but at least I didn't have to have someone looking at me while they listened to my song.
Yeah.
So it started out that way. I think a lot of people, including myself, can be overwhelmed by social media, especially because like we see artists doing actual social media campaigns and posting so often, and it could be hard to build up to that point. But I also think that it's a really great way to connect with people and to keep tabs on what's happening. I find it's easy to forget what's going on, or to, if you might talk to someone and want to collaborate with them, but then you don't see each other for a while and it's kind of out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
But then when you're on social media, it's, things pop up and you're reminded to reach out to different people.
I think you can build a community pretty quickly as well. And that's the nice thing about social media, because as bad as it can be, sometimes social media with, trolls and people, saying bad things about, people's art, or, I think it could really be, depressing. I mean, but you have to have a thick skin. But on the other hand, it could be great for building a community of people that are like-minded, and do meetup groups and chat groups and things like that. That you try to get ideas and listen to other people's music or writing. So I think it could be a good thing as well, as long as it's used in the right way. I think it's there's nothing better, as far as the technology now is amazing to do that. But your song, speaking of streaming platforms and social media, you have a song that just came out called Worse. So why don't you talk about that song? And first of all, how did it come to you, like as far as the idea to write it, and, talk about that song and where people can find it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my song Worse is out now on all streaming platforms, and this one I'm really proud of. It actually started out as a joke. I was playing, so I have a song out already. I released it in October 2023, and it's called Better.
The guitar replayed in your room whilst I try to break through. Allow myself to feel things. I get anxious when it's all new. I've never felt this, and I know you felt everything. I know that we're so different, it makes me nervous. You say we can take it slow. You put your arm around me, you smile at me, and I feel safe. I don't know what is happening next, but I can't wait to find out. I'm spinning dizzy, but with every stumble I find solid ground. You see the world in every light, the butterflies are taking flight for the better. As we cook in the kitchen,
And I was playing a show in last June, and my bass player came up to me and was like, "Oh, hey, it'd be so funny if you wrote a song called Worse, since you have a song called Better." and so like I was
actually going to
kind of
ask you
like,
about
"Oh,
that, because I
that's
thought,
funny."
what a coincidence. Better and then Worse. Okay.
No, that was very intentional. Like I got home that night and I was about to go to bed, and the idea just kind of struck me. And I felt really inspired. I'm like, okay, I could either go to bed or I can write this song. So I wrote the song, and I tried to include a lot of subtle quotes and motifs from my song Better, but really kind of flip it on its head and make it about the complete opposite.
you hold me close to you, you want me to be well. I started taking medication for my mental health. I knew what I needed, but there is something in the water, I could feel it. For better or for worse, I said I love you first. Your eyes are looking down as if you couldn't find the words. I try to change myself to be somebody else. Don't get hurt. You make it worse. 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 I call you on the phone, you put me on the shelf. I check my watch and yeah, you only care about yourself. I thought I was happy, we were in love, but only when you don't have me. For better or for worse, you say it like a curse. Afraid I'm not the perfect person you think you deserve. I fix my broken parts, revive your broken heart. It's not enough. You make it worse. 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 You make it worse.
Congratulations on the release of that. So everybody, all my listeners, make sure you check out the song Worse by Emma Della Rossa. And, I'm guessing all platforms, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
This one is different than my other releases because this is the first release that I co-produced, and so, a lot of the production stuff came from me, and then I collaborated with my producer I worked with on Better and on my other single.
So I just want, this is an advice from me to artists out there listening that, interviewing Emma here, you have a microphone that's, I think it's an SM7B, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I do a lot of interviews, a lot of people that are even in the industry and they don't have half as good a sound on these interviews as you do. And, so you care about the sound. And, like I said, so my advice out there to other artists that are going on to podcasts or shows that, doing interviews, Emma there sounds amazing. And you're one of the few out of the 250 episodes that I've done that actually has a really nice microphone. So kudos to you for being prepared for something like this. And that's all part of, building your career and being a business person, knowing what sounds good and knowing, how to be on time to interviews and you even set this up yourself and, you didn't have some, PR person, come into me. Everything was set up by yourself. And, again, it's a great thing for independent artists out there to take notes, because it's amazing, how you did all this yourself. So, talk about also with being an independent artist, because I know that you talked about being shy at one point, and I listened to your podcast from beginning to end, talking about, how you didn't, you used to be shy getting in front of people, and it took a while to when you're not in a group or maybe part of a choir or like in church, there's several people up on stage and now it's just you. So talk about the first time that you were up there by yourself in front of a crowd and talk about that experience. It had to have been nerve-wracking, I'm sure.
I don't know if I remember. I'm trying to think. I remember I did talent shows in elementary school, and I was always incredibly nervous. And I did my undergrad in flute, and so I did a lot of performances, and we had our placement auditions at the beginning of the year and our performance juries at the end of the year. So I was playing a lot of flute, and that kind of helped with a lot of exposure therapy.
Sure.
To help with the nerves. But I remember for a very long time, whenever I would perform, especially if I was singing, I would feel so terrible afterwards. I would, even at like piano recitals as a kid, I would cry after every performance because if I made one little mistake or my finger slipped or one tiny voice crack, it would feel like the end of the world.
Even though probably most people wouldn't have noticed, but you, right?
No. But the thing was, I noticed, and I
That's
didn't
the worst
like
part.
it.
Yeah. It's even worse sometimes, right? If you notice it, because then you have to go through the whole performance like, oh my gosh.
It was never reassuring to me when people would say that no one noticed, because I know I wanted it to be good, or I wanted it to be perfect.
Well, I go back to that creative people are perfectionists. I mean, that's, right? It's true. It's true. And, but now obviously you've had several performances under your belt. I was actually thinking when you're talking about playing the flute, I would imagine that if somebody's nervous and you're hyperventilating, I mean, a flute would probably be the worst thing to play because you have to, it's a wind instrument. So that would be something else to play the flute by yourself and being nervous at the same time. That had to have been something else, right? Yeah,
definitely have experienced that. It's a lot of control.
Yeah,
just keep everything going.
So where do you want to be, down the road a few years? Like, I know you said you're impatient, but, it's in the trajectory of your career right now, I mean, where do you think in a few years you want to be? I mean, what are you looking forward to doing in a few years?
Yeah, I feel like out of all of the things I do, I'm most passionate about songwriting, and so I want to really lean into that in the coming months and years future. I want to do more co-writing sessions and collaborations, and I have 2 projects that are in the works for 2026. One project in 2026, and then I would like to release an album. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, you can definitely do that. I mean, it's something like you said, it does take time sometimes to put together an EP or an album. And I think it's not really aggressive. I think, you have the drive and the passion to do it. So that's, you have that's the worst thing to get over, is having that passion and drive, which you already have. So you're halfway there already, and also talk about your process for writing music. I mean, what inspires you and how do you come up with your music?
Yeah, songwriting is a really big part of how I process things personally, process my own emotions and things that have happened to me. And so a lot of my songs are inspired just by my daily life. And even when, if, sometimes I'll write a song about something a friend's going through, but I'll use bits and pieces of my own life to kind of give the five senses and sort of paint a picture in people's heads.
Yeah.
But I've been writing a lot recently, so the songs come out really quick, and so I find I get inspired by a vibe, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
I can describe it as like the feeling of impending doom, right? Like, and you feel it in your full body.
Sure.
I feel that way, but instead it's like a feeling of impending creativity.
Yeah.
And it just kind of hits me, and I'm like, okay, I know that if I sit down to write right now, something's going to come out, and it's going to come out fast.
Sure. Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's, some people have, like it told me that, when they're sleeping or something, they'll have a dream or they'll think of something in their sleep and they literally have to wake up and write it down so they don't forget, because sometimes, you never know when the creativity is going to hit you, and you got to make sure that you answer the call, right?
Oh yeah. And you gotta write it down. I forget half of my ideas unless I record them or write them down in some way.
Yeah, I don't blame you. So we talked about 3 years down the road, but what is your ultimate goal as a musician? I mean, do you want to continue to be a solo artist, or do you look to be part of a band, or do you feel that your career as a solo artist is really where you want to be? I mean, even further than 3 years down the road. I mean, before you play, obviously, arena shows, right? And different things like that. But I mean, is that what you want to be down the road, even further than 3 years as a solo artist?
I think definitely I do want to continue being a solo artist. I think my songs are so personal to me and what I go through that I think and like a lot of what I do is independent, mostly out of necessity, because it can be hard to find collaborators when you're starting out, especially as a student. But I think also collaboration is such a big part of how I work and how I would like to work. So whether I know I will stay as a solo artist, but whether I do other like bands and collaborations in addition to that, I think I always want to be working with people and trying new things. I think as a songwriter, especially, it like really opens you up creatively when you're able to work with other people.
Yeah. No, I'm a huge advocate for collaboration. I feel like, you can cross over to other audience bases, other genres that you maybe not know about you. And I think it's amazing for that person to come into your genre of music as well. And I think some of those collaborations, some of my favorite songs have, that are either, pop plus rap or country plus, hip hop. I mean, you never know. You never know until you collaborate how good a song could really be. And I'm a huge fan of that, type of situation. So, and like, again, it always, I think benefits an artist, especially indie artists, to cross over at some point into other audience, bases. And I just think it's, it helps you grow as an artist as well, to kind of see things from a different point of view.
Oh, for sure. Like, I have a lot of songs I've written that are, very out of genre from what I've released as a solo artist. And I would love to, like, I don't want to just keep those songs and like throw them out just because they don't fit into that genre or that aesthetic. I would, ideally want to work with people and give them away to people who could really do them justice. Yeah.
One of the things too that I was going to mention, I didn't ask this earlier, but a lot of the artists that I interviewed that have been Grammy winners, like people that have been out there for a long time. One of the things that they almost every single one said how much they enjoyed performing and gaining a European audience, like a UK and in Europe, and they're just such students of music there, and they really appreciate every kind of genre of music. And when I tour there, like literally, they'll sell out arenas, and even though they've kind of dried up here in the United States, they have lifetime fans over there. So that might be, again, might be something to look at in the future is do a little, like a bar tour or something like that, in Europe, because a lot of people do that and they gain a lot of followers that way.
That would be cool. I have family in Italy, but I've never actually been there.
Maybe this is a good opportunity.
Yeah.
I was in England not too long ago, and they just love. Every time you go into an establishment, it doesn't matter where, they're playing music. There's live music everywhere, in the countryside. Even it's just amazing. The music, the love for music over there is it's amazing. So, again, something to consider, I guess, down the road.
Oh, for sure.
So I guess, you talked a little bit about what's next and what you want to do in 2026. You want to come up with an album, but talk about how people can find you and how they can look at your work.
Yeah. So, I am at Emma Della Rossa anywhere on any social media. I have a website now. It's emmadellarossa.com. If you Google my name, you'll find something.
There you go. And that's good too. A lot of people, say, well, you Google my name, you're not going to find anything. Well, then you're not doing enough. If you want to be an artist, you got to get out there. Well, congratulations on the release of your song Worse. And, I'm really happy to have you on the show, and, appreciate the time tonight, and always welcome back on the show. But thank you for your time, Emma. And for all our listeners out there, go check her out, emmadellarossa.com. And, see what she's got out there. So, but again, go check out Worse, download it, and you won't be disappointed. So, again, thank you for your time, Emma.
Thank you so much for having me.